Hi everyone, and welcome to my coverage of Game 3 from the World Chess Championship 2014. After Carlsen's victory in Game 2, the chips were down on the table in this match. Another victory to Carlsen would almost certainly end it after only 4 games. A draw would change little and in fact favour Carlsen, as he is ahead and there would be one less game remaining. Specifically, he would have an extra turn with the white pieces as well. As far as Anand was concerned, it was a real test on his resolve regarding the strategy he's using for the match. In Game 1 he played a sharp and risky opening, clearly entering some of his preparation. Would he now continue in the same vein, or would he try something safer? It all unfolded this morning anyway. Vishy with white opened again with d4. And Carlsen responded with knight f6, which is normal enough for him, but after c4 he played e6, avoiding the Grunfeld, which he played in the first game, and in that game he walked straight into Anand's prep. So already Vishy was dictating the play to some degree, and here he continued with knight f3, sidestepping the Nimzo Indian with knight c3 and bishop b4. I've been hoping to see this line played because Carlsen is a great positional player, and of course it's an opening that leads to many positional ideas. Carlsen has a great record with it too, despite some close shaves in the f3 variation, so it's not that surprising that Vishy chose to avoid it. So Carlsen continued with d5 here, transposing into the Queen's Gambit declined. So knight c3, and now we saw one of the main lines with bishop e7, and now the bishop f4 variation, which doesn't have an official name but is a popular variation and quite topical at the moment, with at least 2 games played in this line in the recently finished Petrosian Memorial. The main line now is for black to castle, and as in most lines of the Queen's Gambit, d takes c4 is giving white active play in the center, and it's probably not possible to hold on to this pawn, and therefore unwise simply to give it up and go to center for nothing. After this move, white's able to play e4 or e3 and take, and he's getting play in the center. This just undermines, or not undermines, but gives up the black center. So obviously not a good idea. So yeah, he just castled, and now Anand played e3, and having played the bishop f4, this is a natural move, so the bishop is outside the pawn chain. And now the bishop on f1 is covering c4. And at this point there are 2 main lines, knight bd7, which Carlsen played, and also c5, that amongst other things allows white to inflict an isolated pawn on black. In any case, Carlsen didn't want to play too aggressively, and so he went for knight bd7 instead. And one of the drawbacks of that move is that it allows white to play c5 himself, which Carlsen did after knight bd7, which Anand did. He played c5, and this is a double-edged move, despite being the most popular continuation. It gains space on the queen side, but it also takes the pressure off the white center on d5, and makes it much easier for black to equalize through playing for the e5 push, or in other ways, one of which Carlsen pursued in the game, and which we'll see. He played c6, is keeping everything solid. There are some ideas of white playing c6, sacrifice a pawn for positional compensation. So c6 just keeps everything solid. And Magnus has a concrete idea in mind that we'll see shortly. So after bishop d3 he played b6, put some pressure on black. So Anand defended his space with b4, and after a5 he played a3. And not b takes a5, or you give him black exactly what he wants after b takes c5. This is the whole idea. It's just to undermine the white queen side, or at least put this kind of pressure on it. And that's where white is strong, so it makes sense to do that. So a3, now bishop a6. Carlsen is following one of the main ideas here of trading off the light squared bishop because it's trapped behind its own pawns anyway. And with only the dark squared bishops left on the board, black has some claim to a slight positional plus because of the white pawns being on dark squares and the black pawns being on light squares. But there is of course the rest of the position and the rest of the board to consider as well. Again, this is the main line, but there are other things worth considering for black, such as knight h5. to try and exchange off this bishop on f4, which is excellently posted on this diagonal, and otherwise hard to challenge after c5 has been played. There's obviously no bishop d6. So bishop takes a6, Anand initiates the exchange, and it was clear from the speed of his play here that he was again in preparation, whereas Carlsen was taking longer with his moves. Thus far the preparation really has been a success story for Vishy. The same thing happened in game 1, but last time around in the 2013 match his preparation was not effective at all. So rook takes a6, and now a forcing and dynamic line from Anand. b5, forking the rook and the c6 pawn, which the rook can't defend, so c takes b5 is forced. And white doesn't capture back straight away, of course. His whole idea here is to play c6. And this is how he's going to claim an advantage from the opening. The passed pawn will be a serious thorn in the black army that he'll have to take pains to guard and maneuver around. It's a very forcing line with pretty much only moves both sides in order to maintain equality. And black must play queen c8 here, because there's no reasonable square for his knight to move to. If it goes to b8, then c7, supported by the bishop and also attacking the queen on d8, is winning a piece. So this move queen c8 has the point that if c takes d7, queen takes c3 is check, and the queen is going to have to stay on this square and guard the pawn for a while, because white must now play c7 in order to save the pawn, and as you'll see there's going to be pressure down this file. And again black's play is virtually forced. b4 here. Bishop takes a3 is also worth considering. We won't go into that though. So it should be noted too that ideas such as knight h5, trying to attack the only defender of the pawn, it's too late for this move, and it now gives white a big edge after knight takes b5. So this is now defending c7. So knight takes f4, e takes f4, and white has a very nice advantage, already close to 2 pawns in fact, so almost winning. So b4 is what Carlsen played, and now knight b5 is again the only good move. And Carlsen responds with a4, and this is for a couple of reasons. Firstly, it's to prevent white from playing a4 himself, making this an outpost square, which would be ideal. It's very hard for black to challenge this knight. This knight is 4 moves away from doing so, and the lack of space is a serious problem. Obviously the rook and the bishop are unable to, but after a4 from black, rook a5 is possible to challenge the knight. And the knight is also eyeing d6 here, which is a hole in the black position, and this is another major point to getting the knight to b5. And yeah, it should be noted too that b takes a3 is nothing to worry about. White can simply castle and round the pawn up later, and black is just wasting time with this move. So a4 is what black played. And now rook c1 from Anand. It's a strong move with the direct idea of playing bishop d6, where bishop takes d6 isn't possible because of knight takes d6 attacking the queen, and once the queen moves, c8 queen is coming, supported by the knight on d6 and the rook on c8, and so this is effectively, well, it's just directly winning a piece. So black counters this idea by playing knight e4, which controls d6. Levin Aronian and Mickey Adams played this line in the Bilbao tournament of 2013 with a hard-fought draw. Anand was still playing quickly and clearly still in his preparation. Carlsen went into a long think after Anand's next move, knight g5, which is still following Aronian Adams. White is threatening to play simply knight takes e4 and bishop d6 with the same idea as before, and this is a tricky looking move of course because the knight is hanging on g5, but it's off limits because of tactical complications and problems. After careful consideration, Carlsen found the correct move, knight df6, just backing up the knight. If If he plays instead knight takes g5, then bishop d6. The same idea is winning. For example, rook a5, bishop e7, rook takes b5, a takes b4, and the rook is trapped here on b5, and queen takes a4 is coming to win the rook, and meanwhile f8 and g5 are forked by the bishop, and the c7 pawn is still really strong. For example, rook e8, queen takes a4, rook e7, queen b5, and it's virtually a technical win. Similarly, bishop takes g5 fails to bishop g5, and rook a5 is best. Knight g5 loses because of knight d6. Again, the queen actually only has one square, which is a8, and now c8 queen, so obviously winning. So rook a5 would be better, but now a takes b4, rook takes b5, queen takes a4, and again white has a sizable advantage and great endgame prospects after rook b4, queen b4, knight g5, and simply castling. So knight df6 is best, just supporting the knight that's defending d6. So knight e4, and now knight e4 from Carlsen, which makes some sense to maintain the ideas the previous knight had on e4, but perhaps worth considering was d takes e4 here instead. Best play continues at knight d6, because now if bishop d6, black has cleared the d5 square and he can play knight d5, and he may even have a slight edge here with ideas like queen d7 and rook c8. The double pawns are nothing really to worry about, and may even help black here. It's preventing him from advancing on the king's side without slightly damaging his pawn structure, making his weak pawn on e3, which obviously with knight d5 is a problem. A takes b4 is not a concern because this gives black a supported passer, and just going to march down here for counterplay. So of course white should play instead knight d6 instead of bishop d6. So here we play knight d6, and after bishop d6, black has the dynamic choice b3, which the engines give as equal after bishop f8 and king f8, and black has a pawn for the exchange, specifically a supported pass pawn on b3, and knight d5 is coming, which is a great square, and combined with rook a7 this is going to round up the c7 pawn, and there's nothing white can do to stop this. For example, queen d2 is the strongest move with the threat of queen b4, and then queen b5 attacking the rook before black has time to put pressure on c7. So for example, knight d5 just attacks b4, f3, ef3, gf3, king g8 is given as best, but now we get to position with the same idea, king f2, g6, e4, knight c7. It's of course of an engine line. I'm not sure if Carlsen would be playing these weakening moves and so on, and I'm not sure if white would play exactly the same way, but this is the line that the engine gave anyway. So here black has two pawns for the exchange, but he has to contend with the kingside initiative. So it's an interesting line for sure, but fairly probable that Anand and his team had at least looked at it, which in addition to the doubled pawns was probably enough to sway Carlsen away from playing it. Okay, so back to the game continuation. It was knight takes e4. So now f3 attacking the knight from Vishy, and it can't actually move because it has to defend the d6 square against this threat of bishop d6. Therefore black is obliged to attack the b5 knight in return, or one of the other pieces, but the b5 is obviously the best choice. So rook a5, and it's at this moment that the game deviates from Aronian Adams, which continued with queen e2 to support the knight, and then queen d7 to attack it again. Instead of that, Anand again played a forcing line, f takes e4. So black has to answer rook takes b5, and then he played queen takes a4. And the rook is attacked, it only has one move, which is a5. Defending with queen d7 is just going to lose tactically. White has many ways to win. You can just do queen takes b5, for example, as one. E takes d5 is best, but just so we can see an idea of the tactics in the position. For example, c8 queen, rook takes c8, rook takes c8 check, queen takes c8, queen takes b5, and white's a rook up. Queen c1 check isn't working. King f2, queen takes h1, queen e8 check, bishop f8, bishop d6, and of course white wins. So rook a5 is the best move. And now Vishy played queen c6, and he has a simple idea now of taking on d5 and then taking on b4, and probably bishop takes b4 will be the move, so then he can play king f2 and then bring his other rook into the game, or just play rook b1, taking on b6 and going to b8, and this is going to be totally crushing. Meanwhile, you know, black is asked how he's going to achieve counterplay, so it's starting to look like quite a nice position for white. The queen can't move because of the threat of queening on c8, so black is quite badly tied here, but objectively the position is still equal. So Carlsen continued with b takes a3, and this appears to be the best way for black to continue, at least with the claim to something, because he has an extra pawn, which is a protected pass pawn. But of course, white's protected pass pawn is more significant, as it's restricting badly the black position and creates all kinds of tactical opportunities. If black takes on e4 instead, white can push his a3 pawn to a4 from where it's protected by the queen, which would be annoying. So this is why Carlsen decided to take on a3 instead. And Anand was still in prep at this point and starting to gain a significant advantage on the clock as well as on the board. Here he played e takes d5, and Carlsen answered with rook takes d5, which is definitely a human choice. E takes d5 gives black another pawn to defend in the d5 pawn, but it also gives him a little more freedom, and approximately the same evaluation by the engines on this move, but it's very easy to understand why Carlsen played rook takes d5. So yeah, rook takes d5 is the move. So now queen takes b6, and when he was asked about his preparation in the press conference, Anand mentioned this move, but he said there are obviously many lines, but that when he played this move he was still in his preparation, but he was kind of a bit shady about the whole thing. I don't think he wanted to give too much away, though I think it's unlikely that this line will be played again. He still didn't want to reveal too much, so what we know for certain is that he was still in preparation at this point. So Carlsen continued with queen d7. The white queen moving off the c file means that there's a moment for black to get his rook to c8, which is what he wants, and this is in fact the only way for black to hold. So white is significantly better in all lines, now with an edge bordering on about a pawn. And there's actually a game played between Tomaszewski and Ryazanstev in the Russian Superfinals in 2008 that has this exact position, but with the h-pawn on h3, the white h-pawn, after a slight deviation in the opening. And white played h3 and black played the bishop a6 before white had developed the bishop on f1 to d3, so he just took on a6, and after rook a6 the position was the same, but white had played h3. And the ideas are very similar in this game compared to that one, which Tomaszewski won in style. And it's curious to consider whether Anand and his team had looked at that game in their preparation. It was mentioned in the press conference, but Vishy was a little evasive, which prompted Nakamura on Twitter and others to infer that he knew the game very well and it had played a significant part in his preparation. As in that game, white now castled. Another option was queen a6, and Vishy mentioned this in a press conference, and indeed the engines also considered this move. But anyway, white castled, and now rook c8 was played, which is consistent with black's previous play. So rook c6, also this move was in Tomaszewski Ryazanstev, and this prevents bishop d6, which black would like to play in order to capture the c7 pawn. Obviously black cannot play that on the last move because he had to do something about c8. And the position is starting to get critical now, with white having all kinds of tactical ideas and huge pressure on the black position. There are direct threats such as rook fc1, and then a queen a6, rook b6, rook b8, which will simply be winning. So Carlsen has to do something, find some kind of defense or some kind of strong counterplay, but that's pretty hard to come by in this position. So it seems that the mistake is earlier in the game. So he now embarked on a defensive maneuver with g5, which looks pretty dangerous, but white's pieces aren't really concentrated on the king side though, so in terms of king safety it's not a real problem. In fact, it probably improves it because there's no back rank problems now. So bishop g3, and now he played a bishop b4. There's no queen takes b4 because of queen takes c6, but that's not really a problem for white. He needs to stop bishop d2, which can be annoying, and also prevent the a3 pawn from becoming threatening, which it will do if it advances much further. So Anand found the best move as recommended by the computers, rook a1, because with the bishop on b4, white now has ideas like queen b7, rook b6, and then queen b8. So bishop a5 is how Carlsen continued, and it's actually a blunder. He was now getting dangerously low on time with less than 10 minutes, whilst Vishy had close to an hour, and this is another of the advantages of doing in-depth preparation. So queen a6, and now white is threatening simply rook takes a3 and then taking on a5, and Carlsen was committed to his defensive plan but is flawed. After bishop takes c7, either rook takes a3 or Anand's move queen c4 is completely crushing. This is clearly winning a piece because the bishop is pinned, and if it moves c8 just drops with check, and there's no way to further defend it. So Carlsen's idea is that he's going to play e5 and give up the exchange in order to play on, but this is real desperation. And now comes bishop takes e5, rook takes e5, d takes e5, and Carlsen played queen e7 with the idea of queen takes e5, and trying to keep some threats on h2. But Vishy found a great move here, e6, which is one of many that win. His point is now the queen does not get to e5 with mating threats, and black still has all kinds of tactical problems, not least of all that he's running out of moves on the board and there's no way to break the pin on the c7 bishop here. Moreover, he's in severe time trouble. And Carlsen has a knack of putting his opponents in time trouble when the position is critical, and he definitely got a taste of his own medicine in this game. So he played king f8 here, but after rook c1 he had no choice but to resign, because he's losing a piece and then he'll simply be a full rook down without counterplay. So it was an incredible result for Vishy, who had not beaten Carlsen in regular time controls since 2010, with some 30 games played since then between Anand and Carlsen, and this is the first one that he's won since then. And of course this result is exactly what the match needed, as now it is brought to life. Vishy has some momentum and a huge psychological boost. Carlsen hates to lose more than most, and you can be sure that he'll be out for blood in game 4, and indeed in all the remaining games, as will Anand. In the press conference he referred to Vishy's prep on many occasions, saying how he was well prepared in game 1 and also in this game, and so it's clearly becoming something of a concern. He openly confessed that it was a difficult game in which he got nothing. Carlsen may utilize his usual strategy now of playing more offbeat openings to combat this preparation that Anand and his team have come up with, but of course that can backfire badly. Anand mentioned that he has changed his strategy for playing against Magnus prior to the match, but when asked about it in the press conference he said that it was something that can be talked about only when the match is over. Of course that's easy to understand. Whatever he's changed, it's clear that it's working, and perhaps even that he's getting into Carlsen's head. Of course we can't get carried away, but with the scores level once more the pressure is back on Carlsen to perform, and this loss has shown both that he is not invincible and also that Anand is still a powerful force to be reckoned with. This was just a fantastic game from start to end. No mistakes and clear, very direct, forcing, excellent play. His preparation is legendary, and we're seeing it in full force here. You can be sure Carlsen and his team will be making some serious decisions tonight about how to play the game tomorrow. I expect that Vishy will play solidly and not take too many risks, happy to go into the rest day with the scores tied and an equal amount of turns with white remaining for each player. In any case, it's sure to be a great game, and I will upload a video about it tomorrow evening. So I hope you enjoyed the analysis of this game. Please leave any comments or thoughts. Thanks very much.